Hello and welcome to another episode of the Lifestyle Design Convention speaker interviews. With me today is Steve Pavlina. I'm looking at your triangle right now that you drew at the convention where we saw each other the first time, where we shared a beautiful hug together. I remember that quite well. And I would be interested in, it's basically truth, power, and love, right? And for me, it would be interesting to know, the love part is always something interesting to me. How would you implement that in your day-to-day life?
When people have a growth experience and they really transform their lives and make a big step forward, I find that they do a pretty good job of aligning with these three principles. Mm-hmm. And the love principle is one that a lot of people tend to overlook, but it's also a very powerful one. Truth is basically getting information. It's like new knowledge. I need to have, there's something I don't know. I need to learn the action steps. I need to learn what information I'm missing. So that's like you go on the internet and research things, or you read new books, or you go to conferences. A lot of people do that automatically when they want to have a growth experience. You want to improve your health, you read a bunch of books about diet and exercise and so on, for instance. Power is pretty obvious too. That's about taking action. Take steps that we haven't done before and move things forward. Drive new projects to completion. Change things about our lives through direct action. But the love principle, that's kind of a sneakier one that we don't always see as obviously. And I found that people who are doing real transformation in their lives, they did a pretty good job of integrating this principle, whether they were aware of it or not. So the love principle has to do with what the connections are in our lives that are influencing us. So with that power principle, we get this sense that, okay, you're the creator of your life and you are a strong and powerful individual. You have your own independent will and you can take actions and drive things forward. But what if you're in a situation where all your friends and your family in your life are discouraging you from the path you're on, and they're criticizing you and they're distracting you and they're giving you resources in a different direction and they're kind of holding you stuck? Then how much power as an individual do you have to push through that kind of resistance? And what I found is that a lot of people, even people who are fairly strong in their independent will, they get totally bogged down and stuck when their social circle and their environment is not supporting their goals. And so with the way this principle of love works is take a look at your environment, especially your social environment, your friends, your family members, the people you connect with on social media. Who are these people and how are they influencing you? And if you don't like the direction that they're influencing you, or you can't get them on board to help support you in the changes that you're making, then it's time to disrupt that. It's time to make some changes there. And you can start working on the types of connections you have in your life and send your life off in a whole different direction without needing as much power and without needing as much new information. It's almost like your social circle kind of passively nudges you in the direction you want to go. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. That's cool. You talked about the three principles. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on concrete action steps that you could take.
I find that when people get stuck trying to make some transformation and they're not really moving, it's usually that principle of love that's out of alignment. Usually they're seeking out new information, they're reading about what they want to do, and they're trying to take some action. But if their social circle, if their environment is not supporting them much on that path, that's what really drags them down and holds them back. And what people don't realize is that positive social support is a really important part of transformation. And if you don't have that, so let's say the people in your life, they're not holding you back, but they're not really actively supporting you with the changes you want to make, that alone is actually a problem. That alone is enough to slow you down and prevent you from moving forward. So it's not enough just to eliminate sources of negativity or social drag from your life. It's important also to put in some positive sources. So a simple practical action step that I use a lot and one that I share with a lot of people when I speak is called broadcasting your desires. So let's say you want to make some kind of lifestyle transformation. You want to first find out who in your social circle is going to be supportive of that change and who's not going to be. Because if you are really committed to that change and you want to go forward with it and you're going to be there on the other side having made that change, do you really want to have a lot of friends or contacts in your life that are holding you back, that are going to keep resisting you getting there and you being there when you eventually succeed? They just can't shift on that journey with us to see us as a different kind of person, the kind of person we want to be. And so we kind of need to let go of those connections. But one of the easy ways to do that is to find out who do you need to let go of. And so by broadcasting your desires, you basically publicly announce say through social media, or if you have a blog, post it there, or if you have a lot of friends you connect with on email or on Facebook, then send them a group message and let them know what kind of change you're interested in making. And notice who writes back with congratulations, or that's wonderful, I'm happy to support you on that path, versus who ignores you, versus who says, oh, I think that's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do that, and you're taking too much risk, and you should just keep your job, where you are right now, and so on. And then have a conversation with those people, have a dialogue with those people. The critics may have some truth to bring to your situation. They may see things that you don't. They may perceive risks that you don't. And then have a little dialogue with them and see what they have to say. And if you find in the end, though, that they're not coming around, and that even if you've dialogued with them and you've kind of learned from them, and you're seeing, okay, are they actually trying to be helpful, or are they just giving me some fear-based feedback that has nothing to do with my actual path? It's all about them instead. Do I want to keep these people in my life? How can I maintain or transform this relationship? So some people, you might want to just keep your distance a little bit and not communicate with them as much. Other people who you can tell will be supportive of your path, you may want to spend more time with them, connect with them more, bring them closer into your social circle, because they'll be able to make that journey with you, at least in the sense of supporting you. Doesn't mean they have to go through all the action steps and go through that same kind of transformation, but you want people in your life who are going to support you on that journey. So if you're trying to create a lot more wealth in your life, and you have a lot of scarcity-minded friends who are going to criticize you for pursuing that path, it might be time to let go of those people. Drop them from your Facebook friends, or just don't connect with them as much, or silence their feedback in your feeds. You can do that without unfriending somebody, and simply focus more attention and more energy on the people who will be supportive of your path and your journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. You were talking a little bit about your journey that you had yourself. And a question that I ask all the speakers at the Lifestyle Design Convention is, like, if you would have to say, like, what was your biggest failure that you had in your life?
Biggest failure? Wow. Yeah. I've had quite a few. I'd say my biggest was when I was 18, 19 years old and got really into shoplifting. For about 8 months of my life, I was ostensibly going to university at the time, but instead of going to classes, I would drink alcohol a lot and play poker and go out on shoplifting runs. And I wasn't stealing because I needed the money, I was just doing it for the thrill of it. And it got to be kind of an addiction, almost like caffeine. So I would just go out and shoplift each day to kind of wake myself up to do something exciting. And then I got involved with another guy, a partner, and we would go out and do shoplifting together, and we kept escalating. So when I started out, I was stealing things like CDs and candy bars, and then eventually I'm stealing things like television sets, and stealing, like, I think maybe $400, $500, $700 worth of things at a time, and really escalating it. And eventually I got arrested, and I got arrested again and again, and would get off with community service. And then finally I got arrested for felony grand theft in California. And the likely sentence is I was going to have to spend a year or two in prison. And through a sort of a miracle or a computer glitch or something, the court mistakenly processed it as a first offense. And I got off with just 60 hours of community service, which was pretty amazing, instead of having to spend a year or two in prison. So that was a huge failure on the one hand, that I just kept going down the self-destructive path until it got really bad. But it was also a huge wake-up call. It was when I look back on it now, I see it as one of my most powerful lessons. Mm-hmm. In the pickup artist community, there's a lot of people who go around and they do all these approaches on the street, and they talk to people, and that's their courage thing they're working on. And courage is basically a combination of love and power. It's kind of a way of connecting with your power. And it can be a very intense path of development for the people who go that route. And I did that basically by facing my fear each day of being arrested, doing something illegal like almost every day, mm-hmm. for months. And that was, on the one hand, a very destructive way to go about it. But on the other hand, it was also intensely transformative. It kind of woke me up, and I realized, if I can face this fear, then what other fears could I face? And I remember when I was sitting in jail for about 3 days at one point, and I thought to myself, this is so stupid what I'm doing to my life. I'm I'm responsible for this outcome. It's not the fault of the security guard that caught me or the police officers that arrested me. It's all my own doing. I'm making this into my life. These are my choices that got me here. I have no one to
Yeah.
blame but myself. And this real big weight of responsibility came crashing down upon me. And I kind of realized in that moment that whatever happened, I'd better make some changes. I'd better work on myself. But I didn't feel strong enough to do anything about it at the time. I was like too addicted in the shoplifting. I didn't know anything about personal growth. I didn't know how I would change and get out of this situation. I just knew that I had to. But then I kind of realized maybe if the man that I am today, the 19-year-old version of me, isn't strong enough to handle all these problems or to undergo this transformation, then maybe I could grow into a man who could set new goals and take a different direction with his life.
What was like the biggest epiphany that you had in your life?
There have been so many. I wouldn't say any one was the biggest one, but when I started out on my path of growth, I think one of the most important things to work on was my character, was the kind of man I felt that I was on the inside. So that had to do with asking questions like what's most important to me in life, and what are the defining principles of my life? What rules shall I live by as a man? What kind of man do I want to become? And I thought about the idea of death, that at some point we all die, and at the end of our lives, our physical body, all our stuff stays here. If any part of us possibly survives to any type of afterlife, if there is one, then it can only be our consciousness. It's something non-physical, it's something non-material. And so I thought that's kind of interesting, because if there is any part of us that could live on or that could be immortal, then maybe there's even a path of personal growth that goes beyond this life. Who knows? And I thought, what sense does it make to work on acquiring money or possessions or anything like that that's going to have to stay here no matter what? All that's temporary. This physical life is a very temporary experience. So I wanted to attach my personal development to something that didn't feel so temporary or fleeting. I wanted to give myself a sense of grounding in something that felt more permanent. And to me, that meant centering my life around some kind of principles to follow, to believe in, something that would give me a really firm foundation for my personal growth, as opposed to just working on, okay, I'm going to develop my career over here and work on my health over here and work on my relationships over here. I wanted to plant some deeper roots and kind of give something, a more foundational meaning in my life that would give a context to working on personal growth from that point forward. And I'm really glad I did that, because I started coming up with simple ideas that meant a lot to me, but then they infused every part of my life. Like, I remember one thing at the time when I was around 20 years old, I was really focused on trying to become a man of honor. Like, the word honor really meant something to me. It was very important. So to me, that meant being a person of integrity and being honest in my dealings and not cheating or stealing or lying or trying to manipulate other people. Just trying to be very forthright. And that's how I set out to run my business. And working on that part of myself, I started feeling a lot better about myself. I liked myself more, and I had more self-esteem, and I felt more deserving of having success in my life. That alone, though, was not enough, because while I focused on being the most honorable person I could be, when I started out in business, I was also pretty gullible. So I worked with a lot of people who were not honorable at all. And so they didn't have that same kind of focus that I did. And I got taken advantage of, and it kind of screwed me over a little bit and hurt my business a lot. And I ended up going bankrupt after 5 years of trying to run my first business. And then so then there were a whole new series of growth lessons related to that. So it's kind of a never-ending process. It's not so much that there's any one huge transformational moment. It's really a journey. It's a series of transformations along the way. There's not necessarily one single defining moment that makes you who you are. It's your decisions along the way and who you decide to become on this journey.
If you think of the Lifestyle Design Convention 2015 on the 10th and the 11th of January, what can people expect from you on that talk that you will give? I know it's still quite a while till it will happen, but what would you like to talk about?
Yeah, most likely, since I've been speaking on lifestyle design quite a bit, and I even have my own workshop coming up on that in the later this year in Las Vegas, I thought I'll probably talk about lifestyle design from a very holistic approach, and I'll share basically what I've seen works for people in reality. Like when people want to make some kind of lifestyle transformation, quite often I see it's because they have some type of corporate job that doesn't inspire them, and they'd really like to quit that and move on to doing something more independent, more fulfilling, more inspired. They want to have a sense of purpose in what they're doing. What they want is more fulfillment. They just need enough money to make sure that their path is sustainable. So I think what I'll talk about is how to find that path of fulfillment for yourself first. Like, how do you figure out what's going to fulfill you? And then secondly, how do you make that sustainable for yourself? So if you want to go travel around the world, how do you make it so you can actually pull that off from a financial perspective? How do you make it practical? How do you make it realistic for you? If that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you very much. What should people do if they want to get in touch with you? What is the
Um,
best way?
Sure, they can visit my website, stevepavlina.com. So that's stevepavlina.com, and just click on the contact link at the top and send a
Hmm.
message there. It'll go straight to me. So that's
Cool.
that's one of the easiest ways to get in contact with me.
Is there something else that you would like to touch on?
I'd say don't give up. It's a long journey getting your lifestyle the way you want it to be. It's not
Hmm.
something where you just snap your fingers and it's done. It's always an ongoing process. Even when you get into a lifestyle that you really like, after living that for a while, you may find that your target moves. Now your preferences change. So you're not necessarily going to do this lifestyle redesign process just once. It's something you may do repeatedly, every few years. You may do it on an ongoing basis, like checking in with yourself every day and asking, am I still on this on a path that lights me up? The way I like to think of it is asking myself, am I on the path with a heart? If I'm going too many days in a row and I'm feeling like something's not right and I'm feeling stressed or out of alignment with what I'm doing, then I know I need to make some adjustments. I need to make some tweaks. And it's just an ongoing journey. It's always evolving. It's always twisting and turning. It's something that you will often lose your connection with and have to make some changes to regain that feeling of connection. But when you're there, you know you're there because then you're in that feeling of flow and you have the sense of aliveness and you feel energized and you feel motivated and your relationships are happy and positive and new opportunities are arising and synchronicities occur that make your life easier. So when you're in that flow of living the lifestyle that really fulfills you, you feel it, you know it. It's not something I probably need to describe if you've been there before. But when you're not in that flow, then your priority is, okay, how do I get back to that flow? And that is largely a process of guessing and implementing and then adjusting as you go. It's not something you'll necessarily get right on your very first guess. But the most important thing is when you know you're not living in that place of fulfillment, then you have to stop doing that first. So that's often the first step is that people get stuck doing what's clearly not working. And so the solution there is try anything. Just do anything differently. If you know you're doing something that's not working, get off that stuck place first. And then when you're unstuck, now you can actually more easily find where that energy wants to flow.
This was another episode where we interviewed the speakers that will be at the Lifestyle Design Convention 2015, the place where you will get the tools to design the life of your dreams. Please sign up for it. You can go on www.lifestyle2015.com to get your ticket now. Thank you very much, Steve, for taking the time. Even though we had some technical difficulties, you were very patient with me. Thank you very much.